Tonight's story isn't about how the world ended. It's about how it was quietly replaced. No war. No final scream. Just a year when humanity stopped making noise, and something else stepped in. If you enjoy slow burn cosmic horror, abandoned cities, and endings that don't explode, subscribe now, turn on notifications, and listen carefully. This is 2026, when silence replaced humanity. Chapter 1. The year. The world went quiet. They never called it an extinction event. Not officially. By the time the word apocalypse started appearing in abandoned news tickers and looping emergency broadcasts, there was no one left to argue about definitions. They just called it 2026. I don't remember the exact day everyone disappeared. Only that London stopped breathing. No traffic. No sirens. No voices echoing through the underground. Just wind rattling through streets that had forgotten what footsteps sounded like. I was walking along the Thames when I realized something was wrong. Not panic wrong. Worse than that. It was too clean. No bodies. No signs of struggle. No chaos frozen in place like every apocalypse movie promised. Humanity hadn't died. It had been erased. I found the dog 2 days later. He was sitting outside a corner shop in Camden, tied to a bent metal railing with a frayed leash. A half-empty bowl of water sat beside him, green with algae. He didn't bark when he saw me. Didn't run. He just watched. Like he'd been waiting for anyone to still exist. I crouched down slowly, half expecting him to vanish like everything else. "Hey," I whispered. His tail thumped once against the pavement. That sound. That small, ordinary sound. It nearly broke me. I untied the leash and he stood immediately, pressing himself against my leg like he already knew the rules of the new world. I named him Ash. Because everything else had already burned. The broadcast started weeks later. Old emergency systems still had power. Solar backups. Military redundancies. Machines talking to no one. Sometimes the screens flickered to life in shop windows. Global status update, January 2026 red maps. Dead zones. Nuclear impact symbols bloomed across continents like infected wounds. North America. Eastern Europe. Parts of Asia. But never the UK. We were untouched. That should have felt like mercy. Instead, it felt like selection. The truth came through a signal I wasn't meant to hear. A shortwave transmission looping endlessly from somewhere far south. Antarctica. A place they told us was empty. A place with no land beyond the ice. They were wrong. The voice on the transmission was fractured, distorted by distance and static. But it was human. At least, it had been. Not from space. Not from another planet. They came from behind the ice. From land that was never on any map. I listened from a rooftop near Westminster while Ash lay beside me, ears twitching at sounds only dogs can hear. They were already here. Watching. Waiting for us to reach the right numbers, the right noise, the right heat. The signal cut out. Then returned. They crossed the ice wall when we weren't looking. When the storms covered them. When we told ourselves there was nothing left to discover. I dreamed of them before I ever saw them. Tall shapes beneath shifting cloaks of light, like heat mirages pretending to be bodies. Their silhouettes bent at angles that made my eyes ache. They didn't walk. They unfolded. Ash would growl in his sleep, low and afraid, like he sensed something pacing just outside reality. I saw the first one in Hyde Park. It stood near the Serpentine Lake, unmoving. Watching the water. From a distance, it almost looked human. Closer. Its skin shimmered like oil on water. No face. No eyes. Just a smooth surface that reflected the world, wrong trees bending where they shouldn't, the sky stretching too far. Ash whimpered and backed away. The thing turned. Not toward me. Toward him. That's when I knew. They could see animals. And animals could see them. They never attacked the UK. Not with bombs. Not with fire. That was deliberate. Other countries were cleansed. Nukes fell like judgment, wiping cities off the map in white light and silence. The broadcasts called it containment. But London? London was left intact. Preserved. I found the reason beneath Canary Wharf. An underground facility, doors blown open from the inside. Screens still glowing. On one of them, a translation scrolled endlessly. The biological noise has ceased. Phase 2 initiated. Preservation zones maintained. Ash growled at the walls. I felt eyes on me. They hadn't erased us to kill us. They erased us to prepare the environment. Humans weren't extinct. We were obsolete. Too loud. Too violent. Too unpredictable. But London, quiet London, empty London. It was perfect. The second creature appeared days later. Then more. They stood on rooftops. On bridges. At tube entrances. Never moving. Never touching. Just waiting. Ash refused to leave my side. Food became scarce, but dogs are better survivors than people. He scavenged. I learned. We lived in the silence together. The final broadcast came in December 2026. Clear. Strong. Global. Human presence reduced to acceptable levels. Ecosystem stabilization complete. Repopulation may commence. Repopulation. Not of us. That night, the sky over London changed. Stars rearranged themselves into unfamiliar patterns. The creatures began to move. Not toward me. Not toward Ash. Toward the city. Into buildings. Into homes. Into places shaped by human hands. They were learning. Occupying. Adapting. Ash started barking at his reflection in the Thames. I looked down and didn't recognize mine. My outline felt wrong. Blurry at the edges. Like something was rewriting me slowly. Carefully. I understand now. Why they left some of us alive. Why animals still roam. Why London stands untouched. We aren't survivors. We're templates. Anchors. Witnesses. Proof that the world once belonged to something else. If anyone ever finds this recording, if humans exist again somewhere, someday, know this, the invasion didn't come from the stars. It came from the place we were told never to look. Beyond the ice. And the reason you don't hear dogs barking anymore is because they see what's standing where we used to be. Ash is growling again. There's something on the bridge. And it's finally walking toward us. Not unfolding. Not waiting. Recognizing. End transmission. Chapter 2. When the last human was gone, I thought I was the last man alive. That was the lie I told myself to keep moving. To keep breathing. But the truth came to me quietly, the way everything else had ended. It happened one morning as Ash and I walked past Trafalgar Square. The pigeons were gone. No birds at all. No rats. No insects buzzing in the cracks of the pavement. The city wasn't just silent anymore. It was sterile. Ash stopped walking. His ears flattened. He stared at me. Not past me. At me. And for the first time since I found him, he growled. Low. Confused. Afraid. I reached out to calm him. My hand passed through his fur. Not completely. Just enough. Like touching fog. I didn't bleed anymore. I hadn't noticed when it stopped. Cuts healed without scars. Hunger came but never killed me. Sleep no longer felt necessary. I wasn't surviving. I was persisting. I remembered the words from the facility beneath Canary Wharf, human presence reduced to acceptable levels, not eliminated. Reduced. I finally understood what acceptable meant. The creatures appeared around us. Not hostile. Not threatening. Observant. One stood closer than the rest.
Its surface rippled, and for the first time, it reflected me clearly. But the thing staring back wasn't human. My face lacked weight. My eyes reflected light wrong. I wasn't alive. I hadn't been for some time. The truth arrived fully formed, like a memory unlocked. Humans hadn't vanished overnight. We had been converted, filtered, stripped of biology, turned into records. Walking, thinking, decaying memories of a species no longer permitted to exist. London wasn't preserved for us. It was preserved for them. And I wasn't a survivor. I was a ghost simulation, maintained to ensure the environment remained stable, to keep the animals calm, to make the transition smoother. Ash whined softly. The creatures ignored him completely now, because they were done observing. One of them projected a final broadcast, no sound, no screen. Just understanding. Human extinction confirmed. Archival subjects terminating. I dropped to my knees. Not in pain. In deletion, Ash backed away. He could still see me. For a moment, I tried to call his name. No sound came out. My hands dissolved into static light. The last thing I saw was Ash standing alone in the square, tail low, eyes searching. Then even that faded. If this recording still exists, if something plays it back, know this, there are no humans left. Not hiding. Not underground. Not beyond the stars. We are gone. The earth wasn't destroyed. It was inherited. And the only reason dogs survived longer than us is because they knew how to live in a world that no longer needed people. Ash won't understand where I went. But soon, he'll stop looking. And when the last animal finally dies, the planet will be perfectly quiet. Ready. End of human record. Chapter 3, Epilogue. What lives beyond the ice wall? They told us Antarctica was empty. A dead continent. A grave of ice. A place with nothing left to discover. That lie lasted centuries. The truth was never hidden. It was sealed beyond the ice wall. There is land. Not frozen. Not barren. Not meant for human eyes. The ice was not a natural formation. It was a boundary. A scar left behind by something that had already learned, long ago, that the universe does not forgive curiosity. When the polar satellites failed in early 2026, no one noticed. No alarm sounded. No warnings were issued. Because what crossed the wall did not arrive. It remembered. They are not aliens. Not travelers. Not invaders. They are older than Earth's oceans. Older than the moon's orbit. Older than the concept of life needing permission to exist. They are called many things in the fragments left behind by erased civilizations, the quiet architects. The ones who remain when time moves on. The custodians of silence. But none of those names are correct. Names imply boundaries. They do not have those. Beyond the wall, reality behaves differently. Distance folds inward. Time pools instead of flowing. Matter exists only when observed, and only briefly. The land itself is alive. Not conscious. Not aware. Aligned. Every structure there is grown, not built. Angles curve into themselves. Shadows detach from objects and crawl away when ignored. And at the center of it all is something that never moves. Because movement is unnecessary. It does not think. It calculates existence. Not in numbers. In outcomes. Civilizations are variables. Planets are experiments. Noise is inefficiency. Humanity was never judged. We were simply too loud. The nuclear fire that erased other nations was not an act of war. It was sterilization. A resetting of systems that had grown unstable. The UK was spared because London was already quiet enough. Already compliant. Already shaped into a museum of a species nearing irrelevance. The beings that walked our cities were not the masters. They were interfaces. Limbs grown temporarily into our dimension. Avatars designed to withstand physics long enough to complete the task. When they unfolded, it wasn't movement. It was translation. Beyond the wall, the quiet one watches. Not with eyes. With probability. Earth has been reset before. Mars remembers. Venus remembers. The silence of space is not empty. It is aftermath. And when the last human record ended, when the final animal died, when even bacteria were no longer needed, the planet entered rest state. Oceans calmed. Plates aligned. The atmosphere thinned into something cleaner. Quieter. Ready. Because Earth was never meant to belong to us. It was incubating. And now, with the noise removed, something ancient has begun to wake. Not to conquer. Not to rule. But to continue. If consciousness ever returns to this planet, if something walks upright again, if voices rise once more, they will not be human. They will not remember us. And they will never know that we were not destroyed by monsters. We were gently removed by something that has been ending worlds since before the universe learned how to scream. There is no life beyond the ice wall. Only the reason life ends.
That was 2026, when silence replaced humanity. If this story left you listening a little harder to the quiet around you, you're not alone. Like the video if you made it to the end, subscribe for more stories where the world doesn't end loudly, and leave a comment below. What do you think is waiting beyond the ice? Until next time, keep your lights low, your volume down, and remember, silence is never empty. Good night, everyone.